There's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Empty chairs at empty tables. Now my friends are dead and gone. 8 days ago, we sat around our Seder tables where we read the Haggadah, told the story, drank our fill of wine, and ate our share of matzah. We sat with family and friends, laughed and told stories, sang songs, ate. We celebrated an ancient tradition and probably made it our own. Today, on this final day of Passover, we gather here in Shul, celebrating the journey that the Israelites made, the celebration they had after crossing the Reed Sea that Miriam and our people led, and the women led, and started a thought about heading to their promised land. And yet, with all that joyfulness, helped along by and anchored by tradition, we remember as the haunting words from Les Mis state, there's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Empty chairs at empty tables. Now my friends are dead and gone. This year, almost every Jewish home that had a Seder had an empty chair at their table, had an empty place setting at their table. That place setting, for most of us, was for the hostages in the hopes that they might be returned with fullness of well-being. But it might well have been also for those who did not make it, for those at the music festival, and for those on kibbutzim, for those who were horrifically taken from this world on October 7th. Some 1,470 Israelis on that day, and since, I believe 239 IDF soldiers, 59 police officers murdered. So when we think of the empty setting and the empty chair, we think not just of hostages, but we think of the losses of our people, and we might also think of the losses of our family. After the loss of each of my parents and after the loss of my first husband, at the next Seder, we had an empty place setting and chair as well. There are important people in our lives. A chair might be able to be filled, but some seats are never filled. So we remember the stories that they loved to share and the memories they left with us. In Judaism, there's an importance actually given to chairs and what they represent. So I wanted to take this Yizkor time to speak about chairs and their symbolism, the chairs that we sit in and the chairs that we dare not sit in, the chairs of those no longer here with us, and the chairs of those yet to be born. The chair in Judaism is much more than a physical structure that holds a person off the floor when they are sitting. Depending on the use of the chair and who is sat in it, there is a tremendous level of holiness that can be attached to the chair. Shortly before Rosh Hashanah in the year 1808, one of Rabbi Nachman's followers, who is the shochet, the ritual slaughterer of Teplik, brought the Rebbe an exquisitely handcrafted chair. And Rav Nachman asked the shochet how long it had taken him to make that beautiful chair for him. And he replied that he had worked, except for Shabbos, 1 hour a day, every day for the previous 6 months. The rabbi said, for half a year, you spent 1 hour a day thinking of me. That's unbelievable. This chair means so much more than a chair. And you will be with me whenever I sit on it. During the Cossack raids against the Jews in the Ukraine in the early 1920s, the chair was dismantled and cut into small pieces by Reb Tzvi Aryeh Lippel. And he carried it from Sharon to Kremenchuk, some 20 miles, 32 kilometers distant, running nearly the entire time to make sure he had time to go back and forth to get the entire chair, to save it before the Cossacks destroyed Reb Nachman's shul and chair. The chair was deposited with the Rosenfeld family of Kremenchuk. And in 1936, as the Shoah was already starting in process, Reb Moshe Ber Rosenfeld brought the chair to Jerusalem, piece by piece by piece. And in 1959, it was actually restored by craftspersons from the Israel Museum, who worked diligently, indefatigably. And in 1984, 25 years later, the chair was again refinished by Katriels of Jerusalem and placed on display in the synagogue of Rav Nachman of Breslov in the Mea Shearim neighborhood of Jerusalem, where each of us can go and see that chair even today. Many of us have grown up in a home where no one would dare sit in Papa's chair. Not because he was worried that we might stain it or tear it or change the shape of the cushion, but simply it was a sign of kavod, of respect. I can picture my father's chair in our den. It was sort of a lounge chair, and he got a new one that was red and that could vibrate or whatever, and it made him relax after a long, hard day's work, because he got up and worked long hours, and he loved that chair. Never sat in it. I don't think I sat on it even after he passed away. I don't believe any of us sat on it, but we kept it. And interestingly, this is something the Talmud presents to us. In Kiddushin, the rabbis ask, what is fear and what is honor? Fear means that a child should not stand in their parents' place and not to sit in their place, not to contradict them, nor to tip the scales against them. Morris and Alana, I know you wished I'd said that often years ago. Honor means that the child must supply the parent with food and drink and provide them with clothes and footwear and assist them coming in or coming out of the house. And at the Passover Seder, there is a point where we go to the door and open it for Eliyahu Hanavi, the prophet Elijah. We have a cup of wine waiting for Elijah so that he could relax and participate at our Seder and enjoy the remainder of the Seder with us. But we don't have a chair for Elijah. Well, while we don't have a chair for Elijah at the Passover Seder, there actually is a place where we set aside a chair specifically for Eliyahu Hanavi. At the bris, at every Brit Milah, there is a special chair set aside for Elijah. I think that I actually showed when we did the experience of Sephardi, of Moroccan and Persian Jews through their music. I showed you some pictures of Elijah's chairs in the synagogue that are proud and wonderful things to view. Just before the circumcision, the baby is placed actually momentarily in that chair. Perhaps that child might be Eliyahu on return. In any event, the tradition teaches that at every circumcision, every bris, Elijah is there. Because if the child is not Elijah, Elijah protects the child as the child is brought into our covenant. Now, you would think that no one would dare sit in Elijah's chair. And yet it is said that if there is a woman having difficulty getting pregnant, she should sit in Elijah's chair for at least a moment. And while this sounds like a bunch of modern or a formulation of ancient superstition, talk to any moil, and they will tell you that it has worked more times than you would ever believe it possible. There are other chairs of our tradition as well. Those are Shiva chairs. So Shiva chair, for those of you who are unfamiliar, isn't just a chair that you'll sit on, but it's actually lower than the regular chair, right? Because your hearts are lowered by the loss of a loved one. The traditional chairs are very low to the floor, and they hold us in our moments of despair, sadness, and grief. By sitting in those chairs, we signal to the community just our experience at that moment. The Shiva chair is one that holds us just barely off the floor as we are allowed to be vulnerable and publicly feel and perhaps display the pain of the loss that rips in our souls. Chairs. Chairs are not just places to sit. They hold us and those we love as we tell our stories, enjoy our meals, pass on traditions from one generation to another. And yet, it is the people in those chairs that definitely give the chairs their importance and meaning. And today, as many of us come to remember those who filled the chairs of our lives, we cannot help but feel what is expressed as the song from Les Mis continues. Oh, my friends, forgive me that I live and you are gone. Today, the last day of Pesach, we're here, and it's Yizkor time. And we remember the people in those chairs who have passed on to the next world. It is our opportunity to remember. And I invite you to take a moment of reflection. Who sat in chairs of Seders gone by? Who was sitting around your Thanksgiving table carving the turkey or cracking jokes? many of them groaners, I'm sure. Who was negotiating for the afikomen at your childhood Seder? Who was standing over the barbecue at the family reunion or the Memorial Day or July 4th gathering? Who was never actually in a chair, but nevertheless had an important seat at the table because they were making sure that every plate and bowl was never empty? All of the people that we have come to remember had lives that encompassed much more than the chairs they occupied. And as I look at this room, at perhaps my last Yizkor moment, or next to last, I'll be here for Shavuot, I can't help but see chairs once filled by my beloved HaYam family. Arnie and Jerry and Myrna and Stella and Baha, Milt. So many people who enriched my life so much over the years, gave me lots of Torah and wisdom and support and uplift, joys at the Kiddush table. Jean, there's a grief that can't be spoken. There's a pain goes on and on. Empty chairs here in our shul. Now that dear friends are gone. Here, my beloved CAH family talked about survival. Here they sang and praised God's name. Here they supported us during sad occasions. Here they shared their joyful life moments. Here we argued and learned Torah together. Here we celebrated holy days. Here we fasted and broke the fast together. Here we came together to honor Shabbos and tradition. Here we enjoyed each other's company. And now they're gone, and things continue, but don't feel exactly precisely the same. But the chairs we are remembering today point the way to the lessons they left us. Lessons of honor and love, of resilience, the importance of showing up, of community, lessons about God and tradition, about moral values and ethical sensitivities, lessons about family, the nuclear family, yes, but the ganze mishpacha, the larger fabric that always encompassed our spiritual CAH family. We take a moment and we reflect on the chair, on a person, on the lessons they gave us. Is the person in the chair? If they were somehow able to be in front of you in that chair now, what might you say to them? And what might they be saying to you? Take a moment to reflect. May we continue to remember the chairs of our lives the people who inhabited them. How grateful we are that they loomed so large for us and with us, giving us love, life lessons, and gifts of resilience and hope. And let us say, Amen.